Hey guys, Thomas Jr. here, aka Mustached, and I'm here to review the movie Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, before I begin my review, if you end up enjoying said review, please consider joining my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed. Alrighty then, let's get to it. Now, before we delve on into the recap, let's talk about the redesign, because that to me comes up first. I wanted to thank the director and animators of the CGI for pulling that off. For those who do not know, which would be a little bit surprising, every person who reacted to this movie probably did the oh, the original Sonic design is terrible thing. And sure enough, it went to Twitter, and eventually it caught wind. Even the original creators of Sonic voiced their opinions on the original Sonic design, uh, and thus the movie was, of course, delayed. And all I have to say for that is thank you. Honestly, thank you for handling criticism the right way. Honestly, I think this is one of the most unprecedented things I've seen in in movie history. It's very, very rare to see uh, something of this high stature get that sort of criticism and it being handled properly. Um, you know, Props. Honestly, honestly, it gets more respect than a lot of other movie directors, a lot of video game companies that don't listen to their fans, and just to make the dig, you have more respect from me than even other YouTubers right now who don't listen to criticism. Thank you for that. Thank you for showing the world how to handle criticism. It's about fucking time that somebody did it right. Somebody actually listened to criticism the right way. You handled it professionally, and that is the best thing I could ask for. With that being said, uh, this movie had two hills to climb over. The first being uh, the obvious, it's a video game movie. Um, and my view on video game movies is that the majority of them are bad. Let's be real. Uh, the closest one to me is still Silent Hill as far as adaptation goes. It's the closest adaptation we have to a video game movie, and even after this movie, because they're doing something a little bit different, I would still say, objectively speaking, Silent Hill is still the closest adaptation to the video game. But is it still the best? Well, we're going to talk about that here today. And the second hill Sonic had to overcome is X character from their own world entering into the Earth world. We have seen those types of movies before. The Smurfs have done it. Rocky and Bullwinkle have done it a while back. You know, I'm pretty sure other characters have done so as well. Those are the two immediate examples I can think of without looking it up further. And Sonic himself actually has been in the human world before, or a different version of Sonic. For those of you who don't know, it's called Sonic X. In that series, it struggled to get the Sonic interacting with humans thing going at that point in time. And the biggest criticism I think that show faced was that the humans just weren't that interesting. Um, Chris, the human character, just wasn't interesting enough, and they eventually decided on Sonic X to have Sonic leave to more space-like adventures, and Chris kind of comes along for the ride. Anyway, that's all about other stuff. Let's talk about the actual movie. So here's where the recap of the movie officially begins. Alrighty. So we actually start with the end of the movie at the beginning. It's one of these types of movies where we see something happening and Sonic is narrating about, oh, how did this all happen? And we cut to a rewind and he does make the sound effect himself. So we see Sonic as a baby, and he has this owl caregiver who says, Sonic's like running through his homeland, and this owl lady is like, oh, if you have powers, people or creatures in this case will likely want to find you and hunt you and do etc. etc. And what follows look to be echidnas? Question mark? That look to be following him and hunting him down. And the owl gives him a ring, and if you've seen the trailer. I don't know, I was blanking on that word for some reason. It's able to portal through to another area. So the bird caretaker throws the ring and shoves Sonic through and tells him to keep running from these hunters. She stays behind and we see that Sonic tries his best to make his way back, but the portal dies out before he can make it. So we cut to the officer, played by James Marsden, Officer Thomas. He shares my name. And we see that Sonic has, throughout this time, has been growing up pretty quickly. So this isn't like officially character out of the water, kind of like, out of his zone. He's actually been here for quite a while. So Officer Thomas picks up a quill, notices it, picks it up, is like, what's that? Meanwhile, Sonic's just chilling, finds this turtle, starts like carrying him, then goes to his secret base and reads the Flash. Obviously, Flash being a fast character. And as he's talking to himself, he mentions how he's going to go to another world eventually, and he mentions this mushroom world, which he says he hates mushrooms. And I immediately thought, yep, that's a dig at Mario. Very obvious. They're just like, bam. So he calls Thomas the Donut Lord, as he's a cop, and he does the whole cop thing of eating donuts, I guess. And he sort of interacts with this other town person named Carl, who has the old Sonic meme, one of the Sonic memes drawn on paper. He's like, oh, this blue blur is out there, it's something along those lines. So again, Sonic keeps talking to himself, being as lonely as he is. He's been, doing his own thing for that long. So Thomas is getting ready to join the bigger department, and his wife, I think her name is Aussie, if I remember correctly, And he plans to move to San Francisco to hit the big leagues. And Sonic overhears that. So he kind of runs off and he goes to watch some baseball. Uh, and we see this part in the trailer. He goes out in the field at night and he's playing by himself. He's still all alone. And this scene, immediately after what the trailer shows and before he goes runs super fast, is probably one of the best moments of the movie in terms of the redesign being something that really affects the way Sonic looks. The way Sonic is able to carry himself in an emotional level is something that I think could have only been achieved through this more cartoony look and this more accurate Sonic look. He's able to look happy, look sad, look angry, he's able to express. And that's something that didn't look quite as right with the original design in the first trailer of Sonic. So we see him after he plays by himself and he does the whole home run thing and he looks out and he sees that of course no one's there and he still feels so alone and he feels like he's going to be alone forever. So that's what causes him to run out of frustration. It's out of anger. So for what it's worth, it allows people to connect with the character, and I think it does an effective job. It's a little bit of a goofy moment followed up by a very surreal realization. I think that's a really good way to handle a transition from comedy into, a little bit of drama, a little bit of like, oh, okay. So this movie carries a lot of that with it. And it does it really effectively. So, after he runs super fast, that's what causes the blow up to happen. And we cut back to Thomas very briefly, who's Officer Pell gets overwhelmed by all the people calling in. So, we cut to the government, and one man mentions Robotnik, and how Robotnik is this man who's off the grid and is super smart, and he's like the only man who can figure this out. So we cut to Robotnik coming in, played by Jim Carrey, who has his drones head out and start looking for Sonic, and is able to find one of his footprints. So the men head out, and Sonic starts panicking. He goes to his little hideout, he tries to pull out the rings, but they're like right on top of him. He feels like he does not have enough time to set that all up. So, meanwhile, Thomas calls his wife, Aussie, and he hears a noise as Sonic had ran over to hide there. So that's when he pulls out the trank gun, and we see Sonic again sneaking into the house. And he mentions very briefly how San Francisco, or he's like looking at the shirt after the fact. And this is where you see the scene that most people were appalled in the original movie of the Sonic scream, and then Thomas finding him, shooting him in the leg. And you hear Sonic again talking very briefly and then passing out. So, Thomas, when he wakes up, is like poking and prodding at Sonic a little bit, trying to figure out what the heck he is. And eventually Sonic wakes up and talks directly to Thomas. And he's like, oh, okay, this is odd. You're like an alien thing or whatever. And we hear and see that Robotnik is already heading over. He's already found the location. So Sonic begs for help, and that's something that Thomas said he was looking for. He was looking as an officer to prove himself, to really help out someone who is in need of help, and lo and behold, Destiny had a funny way of showing its hand by allowing Sonic to be that character. So, Thomas heads out to see Robotnik, and he's like attempting to trick Robotnik into leaving, but nonetheless, Robotnik makes his way in. And the drones start like popping out as Sonic is hidden, and he goes into a ball and is able to roll out of the attic he hides in. Robotnik picks up the quill after Thomas is all like, "Nope, there's nothing here," and then he's like, "Nope, I know there's something here." So Robotnik gets ready to essentially kill Thomas with his drones. He has the drones guns come out. So Sonic makes his appearance known. Robotnik freaks out. And Thomas pulls out Sonic as the drone starts firing upon them. So Sonic tries to attack the drone. It's not very effective at all. And then that allows enough time for Tom to hit it down. So the two of them run off into the van. Once inside, we see that Sonic gets distracted by some like this ball of yarn thing, and then he goes off and he comes back. So they continue traveling, and Tom gets to a payphone. Sonic tries to stay in the car because that's what Thomas told him to do, but he sees this bike party and he's like, "Oh man, that's a cool bike party." So Thomas calls his fellow officer Wade. Meanwhile, Robotnik's already there to pick up the phone instead. And Thomas, when done with that, picks up a meal but sees that Sonic is nowhere in sight. So he sees that Sonic has made his way inside with a disguise on, a poorly made disguise. And Sonic, as they are talking with Thomas, he talks about this bucket list of things that they could potentially do, since Sonic is all about, he wants to leave Earth because he's being chased and all that. But he still really likes Earth. He's been there for, again, since he was a baby. He has things he wants to kind of do. So they go through a little montage of like them dancing, doing darts, doing other sports. And after the fact, we have 3 biker dudes call up on them and say, and this is really funny. I actually laughed out loud, or I laughed pretty heartedly. As there was this thing on Twitter, like, not too long ago, and it was, say, a day or two after Birds of Prey came out, about, like, how Sonic is so racist, how there's gonna be homophobic stuff, there's gonna be racist stuff, and lo and behold, in the movie, these 3 biker dudes come up and they say, "We don't like your kind around here," and I was like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" And then they say, "We don't like hipsters." I was like, okay. That was a good one. It was almost as if they called that was gonna happen, or someone set that up. I don't know what happened, but that was pretty damn good, regardless. So, anyways, the guy tries to throw a punch at Sonic. He's just too fast. He ends up hitting Thomas, and a bar fight ensues. So, Sonic goes so fast for the first time in the movie that everything slows down. Now, this is very akin to Quicksilver from the X-Men scene. If you've seen that, you know what I'm already talking about. How everything is so slow, that Sonic is so fast, everything is virtually at a standstill, or as close to a standstill as, very, very, like, near slow stop movement as it could possibly get. And this was the first time that he eats some chili dogs. And that's a great reference. Thank you for that as well. So, he does this entire setup, which, after the fact, he causes everyone to fall down that's in the fight, um, including the big guy. So, the two of them head into a hotel, and Thomas is like, "Yeah, you're gonna leave anyway. Might as well just mess around." So Sonic speeds around the hotel around as well, and that's eventually when he gets tired and falls asleep. So Thomas sees he's on the news, and I'm gonna say this now. Yes, later on in the movie, no one really cares that he was on the news, and I actually want to applaud that too. Golf clap. That one was a good one. That one was really clever. Fake news joke. Usually I'm not a fan of dropping a storyline, but for that one was actually subtle enough to get caught. Uh, so I applaud that one. That one was really effective. Really good. Um, so anyways, so he goes to sleep. As I said, Sonic watches the news. And Robotnik, of course, with his tech-savvy ability, is able to pinpoint their location. And of course, Tom talks about his bucket list, as they were talking about that earlier. And he talks about how he had wanted to prove himself. And of course, Robotnik eventually catches up. And this is when they're back in the vehicle traveling, by the way. So as they're traveling, Robotnik latches onto their car, and Sonic spin dashes, hitting the back of this vehicle or this machine that's essentially trying to attack them. And he gets back to the car, and Robotnik sends out more of the machine. So Sonic moves the devices, these other drones, and destroys them, and it makes a smaller drone. And Tom hits the smaller drone, and it makes an even smaller drone. It's like the size of a ball. And this ball thing is like sticky, and it eventually explodes. And Sonic is downed from this. He's not dead, but he's downed. So Robotnik is now the one who finds the quill, and he takes it, or has it finally efficiently taken. So Tom carries a bundled up Sonic, and he goes over to his wife's sister's house, and his sister's daughter Jojo comes out, as well as their dog. Meanwhile, Robotnik studies the quill while doing his dance Jim Carrey scene. That's the only way I'm going to describe that as. And the wife sees Sonic, and Jojo's mom gets tied up as she's all like, "Oh, you get this," she's throughout the movie, she's always like, "Oh, this Thomas guy's no good," and now I have proof that he's no good with this whole Sonic thing. So Jojo, seeing that Sonic's shoes have been worn to all shit, she provides new shoes, the red ones, the Puma shoes, I believe they are called. So Sonic, by the way, when he had gotten shot, I've neglected to mention this, but this is the reason why they're still traveling together, is that he had the ring, he threw it just as he got shot. The other ring bag he had, the rings all fell through, and they fell through the last location he mentioned, which was San Francisco. So he portaled them to San Francisco, so he did not know where to go. So he asked, Thomas for help to guide him to San Francisco. So that's what led them to this. So they get to San Francisco pretty quickly, and they see that it's in the building, so Thomas and his wife walk right in, and he uses his police, uh, you know, standing to get in. And this is where they say, this is where in the movie, they have him in the bag, they're hiding him, and they do this weird kid thing. It's probably the oddest part of the movie. So they get to the roof. Sonic's trying to halt his goodbye because he's really gonna miss this place. And that's when the drones are able to arrive, and shortly after, Robotnik arrives. So Sonic pushes Thomas and his girlfriend off of the roof, which even Robotnik himself is like, huh, I didn't see that coming. And that's when Sonic slows down time once again, and speeds through, throws a ring underneath them, portaling through to a safe zone, throws them into a stack of hay. But the very slow movement allows Robotnik, because he was moving his finger forward to this button, and he has the quill inside the machine to power it up. So Robotnik's device, his newest invention, allows him to speed up and able to keep up with Sonic. So after portaling the other two to safety, Robotnik gives chase, and that's where Sonic catches up with his own narration from when I told you at the beginning of the movie that was going to happen. So Sonic throws more ring portals, traveling to other parts of the world. You also see that in the trailer very briefly. He eventually gets to Egypt and creates a sandstorm, which distracts only for a little bit. Sonic gets hit once he's back to, I guess he loops back around to San Francisco, and he gets hit down. So Robotnik's there, he's getting ready to finish him off, and Thomas had a ring on him, so he brings and sneaks behind Robotnik, and he starts to fight him off physically. The other cop arrives, and other people are starting to watch on now. And Sonic had been knocked out, as I mentioned. He was still knocked out, so Robotnik says, oh, Sonic's dead. And then Thomas is like, no. He's like, oh, something, he was my friend. And through the power of friendship, I kid you not, that is what wakes Sonic up. That's fine. I don't mind that. Whatever. So that's when we see Sonic blue lightning charged up, and he's able to shoot lightning out of his body. This blue lightning, and it hits the ship. So Sonic is able to once again travel super fast, and hit the machine from various different directions. So he has Thomas set up the ring behind to the mushroom zone that he keeps claiming that he was going to go to earlier, and he pushes Robotnik through. And Sonic decides to stay with them. And we see a cut ahead of time of Thomas and his wife cleaning up their house, and they get rewarded by the military, and he's like, oh, what about that Sonic? What about that blue alien, man? And then he gets rejected. And then, of course, to end the movie off, we cut to Robotnik shaving off his head, having the big mustache, having the more, even the closer Robotnik reveal at the end of the movie, which, very unfortunately, was also in the trailer. And that was Sonic the Hedgehog. And I gotta say, that was really damn good. I was pretty damn well impressed by this movie. It had 2 hurdles to go over, and I think it did both relatively well. Hell, I would argue it had 3 hurdles to jump over, because I mentioned how Sonic has actually been through this before. Um, so yeah, it did that part effectively. The characters, I thought, Thomas was pretty well handled. Their buddy buddy relationship was pretty damn. It was all right. Uh, Jim Carrey was doing his own thing, being Jim Carrey, but some of his dialogue was did feel very Robotnik like. I like how they made him pretty much in what would happen if a tech nerd became very threatening, and that's pretty much what Robotnik is in this movie. But what really pushes this movie to the grade I'm gonna give it is Sonic the Hedgehog. The way, again, he was able to emote, able to carry himself. The animation, I think, actually helped the look. Uh, he was able to emote, and he was able to help me as an audience member say, you know what, I want Sonic to get through this. I want Sonic to succeed in this journey that he's going through. And that's one of the most effective things you can do in a movie, is being able to connect, being able to say, I want this character to succeed. That to me is a mark of a great movie. Yes, I said a great movie. Um, the jokes work. There's some comedy in here. I like the fake news bit. I like the little jab at Mario. I like some of the more subtle references to chili dogs, and there was one reference that I'm a little disappointed by. He didn't say at any point in the movie, at least to my recollection, that's no good. That's definitely something I would have loved to have seen written and spoken in this movie. Um, and the movie definitely ends off with a cliffhanger with potential for more. And I really hope that this movie succeeds to the degree that I'm hoping that it does. Um, because I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. I thought this movie was really, really good. This is one of the best video game movies we have currently. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say, objectively speaking, this movie did it. Well, I mean, Silent Hill did it first. Let's not kid ourselves. I'm not going to kid myself. But in an era where there was still a majority of bad video game movies, Sonic climbed over that hill. It climbed over the hill of character going to Earth that wasn't from Earth. It climbed over Sonic already have done that with Sonic X. It did a lot. And it did it successfully. That is so much. That is such a huge accomplishment. I must once again applaud, golf clap, once again. 8 out of 10. If you have not seen this movie, and if you're a fan of Sonic, I highly recommend you watch it. If you don't know who Sonic is, which you know, good luck. I mean, you probably heard of Sonic the Hedgehog if you don't know who he is at this point. I mean, he's pretty much been everywhere. Literally, he's been in Disney, which also, by the way, good reference to Star Wars, the original one. Another good reference, because the Death Egg was heavily inspired by the big circle star destroyer thing, or whatever it's called in that movie. Another great reference to Star Wars. There are other movie references as well throughout the movie. I didn't write those down as they were happening because some of them were pretty quick. So expect Vin Diesel. They made a Fast and Furious reference, which fast. So pretty solid reference to that as well. Were there other movie references? I'm pretty sure there were. I'm pretty sure there was like one or two more sprinkled in the movie somewhere. So yeah, there's those as well. So once again, 8 out of 10. And would I like to see a sequel? Absolutely. Absolutely. This movie did a really good job. And I think I can already think of a, you know, despite the trailer giving too much away, which I'm always gonna, you know, bad for that. The design part good, but what they showed bad. For their next trailer, if they decide to make a sequel, I think it should be called Sonic and Tails. Not Sonic 2 or Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic and Tails. Um, and that would be another great reference because in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the classic video game, that's when Tails was introduced as Sonic's partner in crime, or partner in heroics, I should say. Because in Sonic the Hedgehog 1, there was no Tails. In Sonic and 2, again, that's when Tails comes in. So I think that would be the perfect opportunity to have the title Sonic and Tails. And I already have a setup. I already have the perfect trailer thing in mind. Alright, and I'm going to pitch this. So if you've stuck along this long, I appreciate it. Here's my pitch for the trailer of Sonic and Tails. So it begins a few years later on Earth. Maybe Thomas, if everyone in the cast decides to stick along, let's assume that they do. Fingers crossed. Let's assume that everyone decides that they're going to take part in the sequel. You have Thomas and his wife. Maybe they have a kid at this point. We skip a little bit of time. Time has passed. You could have a redesigned Sonic. You can have him with the even stockier legs, be a bit taller, a bit closer to Thomas's height. He's grown up. He's about the age we typically see him as, like around 16. And everyone around the town knows who he is at this point, obviously. And when he zips around, everyone's like, "Yeah, Sonic, woo!" All that good stuff. And you could have a little montage at the beginning of the trailer, right? Have him do a few good things. And this is all at the beginning of the movie. A little montage, right? We cut to the second little portion of the trailer, which is Dr. Robotnik, or as Sonic even refers to him in the movie, Dr. Eggman, which I'll admit that one kind of comes out of nowhere, but whatever. So Dr. Robotnik has found his way to Sonic's world, and he's starting to do what he's done in the classic Sonic movie. He started to use animals as ways to make more technology. So you settle in some of that darker material, and you can even, you can push it a little bit. I feel like you could, very successfully. For those of you who don't know, Sonic, the comic version, gets pretty damn dark. So I would love to see a little bit of darker tones in the Sonic movie. I think you could push it a little bit. So we have that. We have Sonic's world being affected by Robotnik's antics. And then the third cut happens, and then we see Tails. Tails the Fox. Or Miles, if that's his official name, but, nicknamed Tails. He sees this going on. He manages to pick or find a ring, throws it, portals to Earth as well, looks for Sonic, but for the sake of the trailer, he throws the ring, he flies through, and you cut to the trailer name, Sonic and Tails. That's all you get for the trailer. That's it. Those three things, Sonic time jumped, and a little bit of montage. We see Robotnik heading to Sonic's world and affecting it in some capacity. Have Tails find a ring, throw it, boom, jump. What we see behind the ring is just pure black. Flies through, Sonic and Tails. There you go. That's your trailer. You're welcome. There you go. So that's my idea for a trailer. And now that we've had this successful CGI movie, um, there's one movie that I think could one up in terms of entering into the human world. There's one. There's one that could do it successfully and it would legitimately make sense. Digimon. You all knew I was going to bring it up because I would absolutely love to see a highly CGI to the quality of this Digimon movie where, of course, Digimon come into the human world, and it would make sense because Digimon has been known to go into the human world, of course. You've had, in the original version, it was humans going into the digital world. So either way, you could have people interacting with an all CGI world, or you could actually, I don't know if you could probably fit it all, but you could probably have some Digimon in the human world shenanigans as well. So that's what I would love to see in terms of movies of like character from X world going to human world. I think Digimon fits the bill for that perfectly. And again, as for Sonic, I would love to see a sequel. I would love to see Sonic and Tails. I don't know, maybe the director might see this review, this lengthy review of Sonic the Hedgehog. Once again, if you forgot that score, it was an 8 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And again, I would recommend you watch it yourselves. With that being said, if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed, and until next time, everyone, bye-bye!